Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, April 1st through Sunday, April 7th, 2024. This week we have two major events happening. The first one is going to be Mercury turning retrograde on Monday, April 1st, and we'll talk about what that means. And then the second one, though, is Venus entering Aries. And I really want to kind of compare these two transits, these two experiences kind of side by side, because they will be occurring pretty much simultaneously. Mercury will be retrograde from April 1st all the way through April 25th of this year, and then Venus will be in Aries from April 5th all the way through April 29th. So you can pretty much picture like both of these events, both of these transits are pretty much taking up the better part of the entire month of April. So in a way, this week forecast is almost kind of like a month forecast, because what I'm about to be describing for this week will apply largely to the entire month as well. So, okay, although these are two very different things happening, what do Mercury retrograde in Aries and Venus transiting Aries have in common, other than, of course, they're both in Aries? But I would say that the commonality between these two events is that both are suggesting that this month we're going to be kind of like offbeat. It may be a little bit awkward. It may be a little bit dysfunctional. The reason why is because, I think we're all familiar with how dysfunctional Mercury retrograde can get. Most of us, I believe 87% of us, are born with Mercury direct in our charts. So it's a bit of an adjustment to get used to, a different rhythm and turning inward whenever Mercury turns retrograde. So that is definitely, something that would kind of put us offbeat. It can be a good thing, though. We'll talk about the benefits of that. But it is awkward. It is dysfunctional for many of us. But also Venus entering Aries. Remember, Venus is in detriment in Aries. So that can be a bit of an awkward energy as well. It's a little bit out of place. It's pushing us when it comes to our love, our pleasure, our desire, our abundance. We may need to seek for these things in kind of obscure ways or unusual ways. So again, that's where, putting these things together, it's going to be a very interesting month. Remember also, we're pretty much right in the middle of eclipse season for this month. We don't actually have any like eclipses this week because there's no new or full moon this week. We just had a full moon last week, and then we'll have a new moon next week. So we're kind of sandwiched between these eclipses for this week. There will be a third quarter moon though. So let's look at the charts, because we like charts on this channel. So April 1st, I'm showing this chart for two reasons. One is that Mercury turns retrograde on this day. You can't really see Mercury because there are so many planets like crowded together that this chart kind of Mercury is hiding behind Jupiter in this chart, basically. So I don't know if you can see that there. Mercury's pretty much at the end of Aries. But that leads me to another point that I wanted to talk about, which is, you can see what a big cluster we have. So many of the planets, almost all of the planets, are clustered between Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. So there's a huge focus on this general area of these, kind of like late winter and early spring signs. So what part of your chart does this correspond to? That would be like my homework that I would say for today. What general area does this fall into in your chart? Is this at the top of your chart? Because that would point to huge activity when it comes to your career, your reputation, etc. Does this fall at the base of your chart? Then it's going to be much more personal. It's going to affect your home life, etc. If it's more on your ascendant, it's going to have to do with you, and it will affect kind of your self-expression and kind of your whole life, honestly. And if it's on the right part of your chart, kind of around your descendant, it's going to affect your relationships, your partnerships, etc. So just look to these types of things. And if you do have any major placements in Aries, especially Aries, but also Pisces or Taurus, that would definitely be something, to kind of be looking out for. I'm pretty sure most of us have at least one or two major placements in this area. So definitely, take note of that. Specifically in Aries, if you have any placements in Aries, especially anywhere between 15 and 27 degrees Aries, that's where Mercury will be retrograding over the course of this month. So as Mercury, turns retrograde and appears to be traveling backward, it will cross over any of those placements that you have, again, between 15 and 27 degrees Aries. So that will be very profound. Whatever is represented by those placements that you have in that area, whatever is represented by those placements will kind of be transformed, and you'll go through this process of discovery with that placement. It's not always a fun process necessarily, but it can be very useful, very important for like, understanding yourself on a deeper level, understanding the world on a deeper level. And this is Aries. This does have to do with self-expression. Again, of course, Aries is going to take on a different meaning depending on your placements and how Aries falls in your chart. But generally speaking, for us as a collective, Aries has to do with our free will, our self-expression. It's our individuality. It's how we are self-aware, basically, and how we take care of our most immediate needs. So all of these things are due for some changes, basically, some tweaks, some edits. That's what Mercury retrograde in this area is all about. Again, before I get into this chart a little bit more, I did want to talk about Venus really briefly. Having Mercury retrograde in Aries and Venus transiting Aries, largely at the same time this month, I do think is kind of a blessing. I think it's nice having Venus so close to Mercury, just because Venus will make things a little bit easier. Yes, I did say that it's going to be a bit awkward. We're going to be a bit offbeat. We're going to be kind of thinking outside of the box, which is a huge advantage of these types of transits. But Venus does add like some sweetness, and it does. I think it allows us an opportunity to embrace the absurdity and kind of enjoy the whole process. What would typically be, for many of us very dysfunctional with Mercury retrograde is kind of, Venus is kind of helping Mercury out, I think you could say. Okay, but back to this chart. So not only am I showing you this chart because Mercury is turning retrograde here, so I just wanted to show you kind of what the planets look like at this time, but also for Monday, April 1st, 2024, we also have a third quarter moon, and I know that's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it's definitely worth mentioning because this will shake everything up. This is even more true because of what I was saying about how we are in the middle of eclipse season. So I want you to remember that it's not just the new moon and the full moon that are like ramped up and intensified during eclipse season. It's really the entire lunar cycle, okay? And quarter moons can shake us up pretty much just as much as full moons can, okay? So I know they're often overlooked, but this third quarter moon will have Sun transiting through Aries at around 12 degrees today, and Moon will catch up to this square aspect with the Sun, making that 90-degree aspect. Looks like it'll happen very late Monday or maybe very early Tuesday, depending on your time zone. But either way, Monday and Tuesday look like days that will be intense and will be kind of shaken up. We'll be shaken out of our comfort zones. It is interesting that Sun is exalted in Aries for this quarter moon, and Moon is in detriment in Capricorn. So the Moon is really in an awkward place as well. So this means that emotionally we're a bit unsettled. There's something, emotionally maybe distressing or uncomfortable. The third quarter moon aspect exacerbates this as well. Third quarter moons make us, they kind of put us in like an existential crisis. There's some kind of philosophical change that needs to be done, some kind of change that can be done with our mentality, our perspective, things like that. So it can get very psychological. It can definitely be intense. It can make us feel anxious or stressed. But third quarter moons are push us toward making some kind of change. Like I said, that change is often a mental thing or emotional, psychological, but it can be a physical change that needs to be made as well. So I would encourage you to be active, make some kind of change. After all, we do have so many planets in kind of clustered around Aries. And then now Moon and Capricorn is making that square to the Sun. So Capricorn and Aries, these are both very individualistic signs. They're very entrepreneurial signs. They're both very independent signs. So that's kind of what we are being pushed to do. Be independent. What do you want? So many of us, especially those of us that are interested in astrology, I think we are often empaths. We often struggle when it comes to like boundaries and knowing what we want. So I think this would be an excellent opportunity to come back and, simplify it. Like, yes, things may be chaotic right now. There could be a lot of stress, a lot of different things happening, but I would encourage you to view things kind of simply. Forget all this noise and chaos. What do you want? It can be that simple. Forget what's going on. Forget about adapting to everything right now. That can come later. Right now, just focus on what do you want? What do you want? Because you're never going to get what you want if you don't know what you want. You have to know what you want in order to get what you want. Okay, next chart I'm going to show you before we wrap this up. This is for Friday, April 5th, and like I mentioned before, this is the day where Venus enters Aries. So I did just want to kind of give a shout out and show you what the chart looks like. With this chart, you can also get a better picture of Mercury retrograde if you wanted to see that. By this point, at the end of the week, Mercury is at 26 degrees Aries. And like I mentioned, just to give you these like data points, Mercury turns retrograde April 1st at 27 degrees Aries, and it will turn direct April 25th at 15 degrees Aries. So pretty much the better part of the second half of Aries, Mercury will transit retrograde over. That's pretty much what I have for you for this week. Definitely tune in next week because we have a new moon solar eclipse also happening in Aries, and it will be conjunct Chiron as well. So that's going to be a pretty wild one. I believe this is the eclipse that will be visible over much of North America as well, and that intensifies things for us North Americans too, but it will really be intense for the whole world as well. Okay, but thank you so much for watching. I really hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Take care.